everybody, checking back here for another video today. I figured it's been a while since I've brought you guys through my whole entire day and show you guys everything that I do. So a quick few updates on how everything is going in terms of my physique and general other updates. I am fully done cutting and I've brought my macros up to 400 grams of carbs, 60 grams of fat, and I'm upping it to 70 at the end of the week as I'm still, reverse dieting. And 190 grams of protein, which comes down to about 2,900 calories, and that is around my maintenance amount of calories. As of next week I'll be at 3,000, and that is probably most likely my maintenance amount of calories, and from there I'm gonna see what my weight does, and if it's not going up too drastically I'm going to be upping 25 carbs or 10 grams of fat, just monitor my weight and see whether the scale is moving, yes or no. Now, I've been working a lot on a new training program that I'm going to be releasing in the coming 4 or 5 weeks maybe, or anyway, when it's finished. And it's revolving around my current style of programming. I started a new type of programming like 3 or 4 months ago, I believe. I've made a video about it. It's called my current training programming or something like that. I'll put it somewhere in the cards right here. I've basically added around 10 kilograms or 25 pounds or slightly more to my compound lifts in a matter of 2 months since I ran that program. It's a program that's going to be focused on gaining strength and muscle, revolving around a modified style of reverse pyramid training. I'll keep you guys updated. It's 10 AM right now. I was up at around 6:30. Time to hit the breakfast. So what I'm having for breakfast today is the usual all-bran bowl, black coffee with some sweetener, Nutella sandwich, and water to get hydrated. So for this voiceover, I'd like to cover the bench press and go over what to focus on when it comes to form, execution, and how to best perform this exercise so you can progress in a safe way. So the bench press is the most commonly used chest exercise for pretty much everyone who's into lifting. You think big chest, you think bench press. And as it turns out, that is a fact. Studies have shown that the bench press elicits the highest EMG activation for the pectoralis major. And if it's your goal to increase your chest in its entirety, meaning the upper or clavicular head and lower or sternal head, the flat bench press will be your go-to exercise. Now, since the bench press is also very suitable for progressive overload, it's most optimal to begin your chest training with the compound exercise to elicit the most amount of force when being fresh into the workout. So how do you best set up for this exercise? Now, firstly, I'd like to cover what to do before you lay down on the bench. Now, if you've gotten a bug for every time you see someone spinning their shoulders around with a painful face, always complaining, "My shoulders hurt," after performing the bench press or any chest exercise for that matter, you'd probably be rich. I know I would be. And 99% of the time it's always due to improper setup. So before you lay down on the bench, it's important to retract and depress the scapula, or simply put, keep your shoulder blades squeezed together and down into the bench. Imagine squeezing a pencil in between your shoulder blades and trying to keep it there. That's the tightness that you want to have before starting the exercise. Now, doing this will form a more stable base of support against the bench. It decreases the pressure from your shoulders, keeps your rotator cuffs safe and happy, and also, most importantly, optimizes the mechanics of the pectoralis major, being, for the bench press, horizontal shoulder adduction, elbow extension, and shoulder flexion. Now, when it comes to your feet should always be planted on the ground. Contrary to popular belief that your feet should always be planted on the bench, as your back would then be as flat as possible, resulting in more chest activation. Now, while it might be true that there is potentially more range of motion to be achieved when your feet are on the bench, it's far from optimal and efficient. When you retract and depress the scapula, there will always be a slight arch in the back. So by putting your feet on the bench, you're already putting the position of your scapula in a less favorable way. Now, how you place your feet on the ground, however, is personal preference and also related to your goal with the exercise. And that's what I like to call the powerlifting setup and the quote-unquote bodybuilding setup. Now, while both utilize the same type of setup, the powerlifting variant is in a way more arched position with the feet planted behind the knees. And the bodybuilding variant has the feet planted more in front of the knees. Now, however, like I said, this is personal preference, since there are quite some powerlifters who keep their feet in front of the knees, and vice versa for a lot of bodybuilders. So pick whatever feet placement you prefer, as long as it's on the ground and not on the bench. So when it comes to feet placement, leg drive is also an important component. While there is definitely a difference between powerlifting leg drive and bodybuilding leg drive, it should still be used since it's a compound movement. The most important contraction during the bench press is the eccentric motion of the movement, so eccentric contraction, or the downwards motion of the movement. So by doing everything in your power to get the concentric portion up, you're enabling yourself to make the most amount of progress. So along with proper feet placement, also focus on keeping your glutes flexed to maintain tightness throughout the entire duration of the exercise. Now, you'll often see people bring their butt up when the weight gets heavier, but by doing this puts a lot of unnecessary pressure on your lower back. So keep everything planted and in the same positioning for the entire duration of the exercise. You want to create a stable, solid base to be able to generate the most amount of force. Alright, so the scapula is retracted and depressed, the feet are planted on the ground, and now comes grip width. Now, in terms of activation, according to a study done by the Journal of Human Kinetics, narrow grip elicits the least pec activation, while medium to wide grip elicits the most activation. Now, this is pretty self-explanatory since the pecs require horizontal adduction to get some form of stimulation. And while most people will be sticking to the basic bench press grip, which is pinky on the inner knurling of the bar, this is also the safest grip, since going wider will risk you to lose retraction of the scapula and put the rotator cuffs at risk. Now, however, this doesn't count for everyone, so the same applies for feet placement. Find out what grip works best for you to make the most amount of progress while not injuring yourself. Alright, and then come the elbows. Now, tons of people keep their elbows flared out way too much, which, again, puts the rotator cuffs at risk and will mess up your shoulder in the long run, or potentially mess up your shoulder in the long run. Now, it's very important to keep your elbows tucked at around 45 degrees while performing the exercise. And not only does this elicit more chest activation and less shoulder activation, but also puts you in a more biomechanical advantage to press the bar up. Now, this will, in turn, allow for more progress to be made simply because you're stronger in this position. Your forearms and the barbell should be perpendicular to the floor when the bar is touching your chest. And lastly, I'd like to go over the bar path. Now, first of all, you should always definitely utilize full range of motion. Now, this means touching your chest with the bar and fully pressing the bar up. Now, some people might argue that touching your chest with the bar will make you lose tension, and that is true to an extent. Now, since it's a compound movement and one you should always apply progressive overload on, it's not the goal to make this a purely chest focused exercise. Now, compound exercises are known to use multiple muscle groups to make the movement possible, so it's more optimal to then make use of that. Now, anyway, back to bar path. What you'll see happen a lot is people pressing the bar straight up. This will make you lose a lot of force since the line of gravity isn't in your favor with that positioning. Your arms will have to work way too hard to keep the bar in a favorable position to descend again, which in turn makes you lose force. So once you unrack the bar, let the bar travel to your sternum, so around the line of your nipples or slightly below, and when it's time to press the bar up again, emulate pressing it towards your eyesight again. And what I like to call this is pressing in a J line. Now, you're kind of making a upside down J movement, which puts you in a biomechanical advantage to press the bar up as efficient as possible. Wrist positioning is also very important. Tons of people will experience wrist pain when performing the bench press due to improper placement of the bar in the hands. Now, I was a victim of this myself, and it had to do with where you place the bar in your hand. Now, the correct way to grip the bar is commonly referred to gripping the bar low palm, meaning to grip the bar low and close to your wrists. Now, by gripping the bar quote-unquote mid-palm, you're risking backward bending of the wrist, which will result in pain and potential injury to your wrists, which is obviously something you don't want. Now, with that, also try to maintain straight wrists. Even though you might grip the bar quote unquote low palm, it's commonly seen to see backward bend of the wrist when the weight gets heavier. So keep the wrist straight and in line with your forearms. So if you tend to notice that your wrists are bending backwards, then simply lower the weight and utilize correct form, since you don't want to injure your wrist and not be able to bench press at all. So keep the wrist straight and in line with your forearms. And lastly, I'd like to briefly cover the breathing pattern. Now I see a lot of people breathing wrong, which will make them lose a lot of power. Since your setup has to be tight, it's important to have a tight core as well. And the best way to do that is by breathing correctly. Now before letting the bar descend, take a deep breath. By taking a deep breath, you will increase intra-abdominal pressure, which puts you in a strong position to generate force. And then hold that breath until the bar touches your chest. When it's time to press the weight up again, you can choose to hold the breath and exhale once the bar is fully pressed up, or exhale during the pressing motion. Now that is totally up to you and your personal preference. I personally like to have the midway between both, so holding it until the bar is halfway pressed up and then exhale from the midway up, since I tend to notice that I'm stronger while utilizing this breathing pattern. And that is all I'd like to cover for the bench press for now. I sincerely hope it helps you out with your own bench pressing. If you thought this was informative in any way, shape or form, then please consider hitting the like button, because it really helps out the channel grow, and enjoy the rest of the video. Alright, workout all done, and I'm now in the car headed to pick up Romy and see Mamma Mia. My girlfriend is a huge fan of this movie, so I decided to take her on a date and watch the second part. Alright, so that was the movie. I thought it was a very good movie. Like I said, it was Mamma Mia. I really liked the story, but I think the opinions differ.
Couldn't resist it, but what? It was good, but I don't know. It was, I liked one more, but I just really liked the songs, you know.
It's a movie full of songs, nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm gonna sing this like the whole car ride. One loop, couldn't resist if I wanted to.
Alright, and that is all for this video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to smash the like button, because it really helps out the channel grow. Comment down below and subscribe to the channel for so much more content coming really soon. But guys, and peace out. See you in the next one.